If you want to break the cycle of creating a budget, it not working, and then trying again months later, this video is for you. I'm going to show you a more practical way to create a budget. Enter my 1, 2, 3 method. Let's start with analyzing our spending history. This will help you with making the right decisions when it comes to earning, spending, saving, and investing. An easy way to gain insights into your spending habits is to extract a bank statement for the last 3 months. You can do this via your banking app or online banking. Just make sure that it is in a format that you can put into a spreadsheet processor. Analyzing your spend will be done in 2 parts. Section 1 is focused on how to turn your bank statement into information by using a simple pivot table that anybody can do. Section 2 will show you possible ideas on how to use that information to slice and dice your spending habits to see if there are behaviors that you need to adjust to get you closer to financial freedom. So, let's get started. For you to analyze your spend, you need to categorize your data first. So, create the following categories: class, main category, subcategory. Allocate each line item to the categories of your choosing. You can add as many levels of categories as needed, but for the purposes of this tutorial, we will only add 3. Alright, our data is all prepped and ready for our analysis on the categories, and now we can add our pivot table. Click on Insert, Pivot Table, click on New Worksheet or Existing Worksheet. I'll choose Existing for this exercise. In the rows section, let's add the main category and subcategory by dragging and dropping it. Then we add the date just below that. Select the quarters and years. Let's drag the amount to the value section and make sure that it says sum of the amount. This should give you a great view of a category and what you have spent per month, so you can easily do comparisons. Let's see what kind of insights we can gain from our little pivot table, and I usually start with fluctuations. Look for fluctuations in the same category over a few months. Example, dining out. A surge like this, if you look at the December spend, is primarily because of 2 things. It is either due to a change in circumstance or poor decision making. A change in circumstance is where the surge charge is due to a contextual change. Let's go back to our dining out category. Since this is a discretionary spend, fluctuations are expected, but the pattern of fluctuations in this instance are very scattered. February is at the very low end of the scale and December the opposite end. So in our budget, we want to create consistency and predictability. A budget is a risk management tool. It helps us with mitigating threats to our financial well-being, and it also highlights opportunities that we can take advantage of. A major principle of risk management is if something has the probability of more than 50%, then we plan for it. So how do we create predictability in our budget and apply this principle? We'll look at the context of our spend. I know that December is the festive season, which goes hand in hand with spending more time with family and visiting restaurants. So the probability of me spending more money on dining out in December is more than 50%. Therefore, we need to plan to have a bigger budget for this category in December, and I'll use last year's spend as my going in position. Now let's figure out what a realistic budget would be for the rest of the months. This is how we create consistency and predictability. Just on a side note, do not work a potential bonus into your budget. Including your bonus means that you are living beyond your means based on a discretionary income that is not guaranteed. Companies are not obligated to pay bonuses, so do not bet on it. But back to our budget. Since we have already taken into account the December spend, we need to exclude it from our analysis going forward. I'll take the average of all of the other months and use that as a base for what our dining out budget should be for the remaining months. I know that the average is less than our current spend for November and January, but February gives us the insight that we are capable of spending less. Therefore, this could still be considered a realistic budget. Also, we can adjust this at a later stage if necessary. Now let's move on to the second reason for a surge charge, which is poor decision making. An example of this could be our bank charges. It looks like we have a good average going month on month, but we do have one outlier. So poor decision making in this instance could be I use the ATM of a different bank. So my bank charged me for that privilege. When you see a surge like this, you need to do root cause analysis to understand what led to the poor decision or behavior and then correct it. But if you don't look at your historic actual spend, it is very difficult to recognize this type of issue. Something else to help you with analyzing your spend and creating a realistic budget is to look out for your overall spend per category. To do this, have these 5 allocations in the back of your mind: income, needs, wants, investments, and savings. This is a basic list and can be customized based on your financial goals and lifestyle. I'm going to adjust our pivot because I want to see how much I'm currently allocating per these categories. As I'm not interested in category anymore, I'll uncheck that data point and I will replace that with our class category. So the first thing that I'm noticing is a negative balance. This means my expenses are exceeding my income. Let's keep that in the back of our minds. My needs are exceeding my wants, which seems legit, but it still requires some investigation because of my expense to income ratio. There's no savings or investment, so that is a little bit alarming. I'm clearly not equipped to handle an emergency and I have no mechanism to beat inflation. With this current fund allocation behavior, there are certain things I need to strongly consider. Since my expenses are exceeding my income, I will look at reduction first, irrespective of whether it is a want or a need. Reducing expenses does not exclude looking for a better paying job or getting some side hustles going, increasing your income. But we need to start with the things that is directly within our control and are easy wins. So for this, I'm going to adjust our pivot. I'm only going to be looking at 1 month's worth of data. This helps with putting the spend in perspective as we can compare it to 1 month's worth of income. I'm going to choose November because it has the most spend in it, and I'm removing class because we are looking at overall expenses irrespective of want or need. You'll know better what jumps out at you based on your data and your life context. In this example, it looks like toiletries is an issue because it is, let's check the percentage of spend against our income. It is sitting at 35%. As you can see, we are looking at our spend in context. Go through each of your categories and repeat this exercise. Just a side note, when cutting expenses, go for big ticket items that requires one change that you just have to get accustomed to as opposed to a horde of small changes at the same time. Another approach you can use to align your spending habits with your financial goals is to redirect funds. So going back to our first pivot table, it looks like I may be skimping on medical aid. Surely having an adequate health insurance is more important than dining out. So that is definitely a good category where I can redirect funds from my dining out budget to the healthcare budget. You can, of course, continue this for each category. So one thing to remember here is a budget is not a pretty little spreadsheet with no follow-through. So you need to be realistic about how much you are willing to change, and you need to put some support structures in place to help you stick to your new reality. If you're having trouble figuring out how much money you should be allocating to each of these classes, then a great place to start is with your financial goals. There is a common principle called the 50-30-20 budgeting rule that you can use as a starting point. So 20%, which in my budget I always allocate first, goes to savings and investment. Priority number 2, 50% to your needs, and priority number 3 is 30% to your wants. I typically do not follow this or any other generic rule to the letter because I let my financial goals and the context of my life dictate my spending habits. This is my current financial landscape in comparison to the 50-30-20 rule. It doesn't align to it, but it is working for me. If it makes sense in your life, then let that be an inspiration and not a hard rule that makes you feel bad about yourself when your life cannot accommodate it. Before I continue, it is imperative to note that your financial goals do not exist in isolation. You need to create harmony between the many goals you have as a person, else you could be fixing one part of your life and subsequently break another. For instance, let's say your grocery bill is very high and you decide to reduce it significantly. While this reduction improves your finances, a possible unintended consequence could be that you are now no longer getting the right nutrients and end up getting sick more often. The point is, when you create your budget, you need to think about more than just your finances. Last but certainly not least, we must look to the future. For instance, when I analyzed my life portfolio earlier this year, I noticed that the fun and recreation aspect of it is not where I would like it to be. I love to sketch and paint and be creative. So in my budget, I'm going to allocate funds to art supplies. Make sure that for every goal or improvement you have in mind, you incorporate any finances that is required to support it in your budget. By the way, if you would like to analyze your portfolio and create a strategy for your life, you can check out the link below for a tool that can help you do that. Give yourself permission to enjoy purchases that may be considered luxury. Get that coffee. Go for that massage. We do not live to work, we work so that we can live. Just make sure that you don't go overboard. Luxury in this instance is not synonymous with expensive. It means spending money on items that improves the quality of your life without jeopardizing your financial well-being. As you track your spending throughout the month, you may notice that your budget may not be as realistic as you thought it would be. In that case, you should adjust your budget accordingly for the next month. This 1 to 3 method has helped me tremendously improving my relationship with money, and I am hoping that it can do the same for you. And that's it from me today. If you have comments or questions, just pop them into the comment section. Like this, share this, subscribe to this. This is Dr. J signing off.